You're listening to the Real Deal Podcast, Episode 12, for the week of June 26th through July 2nd, 2016.
Hello and welcome back to The Man Addict for another edition of The Real Deal. I'm Kevin Pauley.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And today we're taking a look at two new films that came out this weekend at the box office, as well as news you can hopefully use with their All Things Hollywood. So, Brian, each of us got a chance to see, we got to see one movie together, and then I ended up seeing another movie with my son. So, I figured let's go ahead and talk first then about The Shallows, which is the film that we both got to see. We just saw it today. The Shallows, of course, is the film that's unfortunately and really unrealistically being compared to Jaws, which of course is my favorite film, so automatically that's never a bad, it's never a good idea to do that. It's a bad idea. But the film stars Blake Lively and a very mean, territorial great white shark in sort of a battle of wits as she is stranded after going out surfing in a very secluded beach in Mexico. Brian, we just got done seeing this, just a couple of hours ago. What did you think of this film? Because for me, I found it to be a pretty effective little thriller.
And I certainly felt that way also. I would say I don't particularly think it's anything particularly special. It didn't completely wow me.
No,
but
it's not like a groundbreaking kind of film. No,
Yeah.
I would not say that. No.
But it's certainly, it's certainly effective.
Yes.
You have to certainly give a lot of credit to Blake Lively.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
she's by herself.
Well,
she is.
first of all, she's by herself. She's acting against basically CG.
Yep.
And she goes through hell.
She really does.
Acting in the ocean and all the stuff that she has to go through. You have to give her a lot of credit.
Oh, absolutely.
She worked herself to death.
Yeah, she really did. The thing I like about the film is its runtime is only 87 minutes.
Yeah, well,
it's very effective in its pacing. It doesn't have a lot of fluff.
Yeah. Well, after all the epics that we, that we tend to get thrown upon, everything, every movie's 2.5 hours long. When something runs at 87 minutes, it feels like a novella almost. It's like, oh, it's over? Okay, but not to say that movie should have been 2.5 hours.
No, I agree completely.
You can do a good movie in an hour and a half. You really can, and I'm glad to see a movie that's not, it's not a bladder buster.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. You can get your drink and not feel like you're going to have to leave for the bathroom during the film. The film is really, it's very very concise. It's very streamlined. And it's very effective in its pacing. I think they do a really good job of always keeping you aware of the geography of the situation, just how far out she is from the shore, from the buoy, from the rocks. You get a really good perspective of that during the film. And it's interesting because, there's so many times when you see the shore and you're like, it doesn't look that far. It doesn't look that far. She could make it. And then you realize, no, she couldn't, because that great white shark is freaking fast. And I think what I like about it too is they find some very clever ways to give you that sort of, the ticking time bomb of high tide.
Yeah.
In the film, you'll know that you'll see in the trailers, she's on a rock quite a bit, and the reason she's able to get to that rock is because she's in a shallow part of the ocean and it's low tide. So now, of course, with low tide, there has to come high tide, and when high tide comes back, the water comes back. And what's neat is it really does. It sets the pacing right there. She's only got so many hours until high tide comes back, and she's then at that point, on the same playing field as the shark. She's in its territory at that point. She's got a gaping wound. She's been cut up. She's bleeding, and so of course that shark is just going to be all over her in a matter of seconds. So I really like the fact that they have a legitimate reason to keep the pace cranked up. To keep the tension cranked up. It's not false. It's all legit. This has to be done. And it has to be done by this time or you're screwed.
Oh, yeah. And one thing that I like about with having the trope of, this rock in the middle of the ocean, strangely, I mean, you're out in the middle of the ocean, and yet the film feels claustrophobic.
Very much so.
You're very limited in where you can go because this is a very small rock.
Yes.
You know, just barely big enough for her and a seagull.
God bless
Steven
Seagal. He's
Steven
awesome.
Seagal.
He is the other star of the film, I will say. He's
Yeah.
amazing. You would never think you'd care so much for a seagull.
Oh yeah.
But by God, you'll care about this seagull.
yeah. I mean, there wasn't such a wonderful seagull with personality since The Little Mermaid. Actually.
Yeah, I was going to say since Buddy Hackett voiced that one in The Little Mermaid.
Oh yeah.
You know, for me, I thought the film really did a great job of keeping the tension. You know, once she gets out there, they kind of lure you in with some really great surfing footage. Let me add that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best I've seen since like one of my favorite surf films, North Shore, in the late 80s, which had some outstanding underwater, especially shots. This film has some great underwater shots of surfing, like what it looks like when the wave passes over you, and how the physics of it work underneath. Really pretty stuff. It's shot beautifully. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some shots, some aerial shots in particular, where I was just like, wow, that's gorgeous. I mean, some beautiful cinematography. And then, like you said, but when the shark is around, it gets very claustrophobic. That big, wide open space suddenly seems very confined. And all you can think of is don't even let your hair off the side because that shark is out there. Right. What the film reminded me of, and you had mentioned it last week, and you were exactly right on this, is the Stephen King short story, The Raft, which was used in Creepshow 2. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good analogy for the film. The other thing I would say, if you are going to compare this to a Jaws film, don't compare it to the first one. It compares much more to Jaws 2, where the teenagers go out boating and the shark attacks them and it knocks all their boats together, and so they're drifting in the ocean on this little island of boats. And that shark is out there constantly, and it's constantly bumping into it and knocking people off and taking them out one by one. If you have to compare it to any Jaws film, that's the one you compare it to. And even still, this is not that kind of movie. This is not like just a big, crazy shark film. It's, if I have to say it has a similarity to the original Jaws, is that I consider Jaws more than just a horror film. It's more than just a shark movie. There's just so much more going on in that film. And in this movie, I could say the same. It's sort of a person versus the elements, human versus nature. Not just the shark, but the sun, the heat, the cold, the water itself, because you can drown at any given moment. There are a lot of
the sharpness of the rocks,
the coral. The fact that you've got things like coral can poison your skin, poison your blood. You've got all these things going on that she has to deal with, on top of the fact that there's like a damn near 20-foot shark. Yeah. That's just out there.
And another thing too is that normally in this film, of course, you would kind of have to, and it wouldn't be a problem really to kind of sort of have a suspension of disbelief, that the shark's after her, and that whole thing. It's like, okay, well, why is the shark stalking her? Why didn't the shark just get bored and go away? And you could just say, well, it's suspension of disbelief. It's a shark movie. The shark wants her. The shark stays around. But what the movie does, and I think is really smart, there's a whale carcass.
Yes.
Just a few yards out, so there's always blood in the water.
Yep.
There's a lot of food for the shark. There's no reason.
It's staked a claim on that territory.
Exactly. So there's no reason for there's an actual reason for the shark to be there.
Yes.
There's no reason for the shark to kind of wander off. You don't have to suspend your disbelief.
Not at all.
There's a perfectly good reason why that shark is there.
Yes. It's again, it's sort of like the problem you have with a lot of films, especially horror films, especially. We talk about the haunted house thing. Why a haunted house doesn't work, because you just think, well, I would just leave the house.
Right.
You can almost say the same thing here. Well, I would just leave the ocean. But the thing is, you can't.
Right.
You're trapped on this rock, and that shark is not going away. And any sudden movements you make, especially since you have an open wound, you're pretty much just ringing the dinner bell for this guy. He's going to make it happen.
Right.
So they do a really great job too of her being. We find out that her character was a med student, so she's able to suture herself a little bit. Very painful and excruciating scene, like wincing a lot when I was watching that scene. I was like,
because she's doing it with her earrings.
Yeah, her earrings. And oh my, it's intense, man. I won't lie.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the things people talked about too. Is this is a PG-13 film? Well, let me remind you that Jaws was rated PG.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get away with a lot in PG-13 when you're doing a shark movie. And the shark attacks in this are very brutal. You may not always see the attack itself, but you'll see the aftermath, and it's not always pretty.
Well, and the thing too is that I think it's they don't cartoon it up at all.
No.
The attacks are very realistic.
They're very realistic, and the shark looks very realistic.
Yeah, for a completely CG shark, I mean, you cannot.
No,
tell.
you really can't. I mean, it's a very convincing shark. The CG team on this did a great job. You know, when the shark attacks, its eyes roll back. You know, you see the extending of the jaws that when it chomps into things. It's very realistic in its movements. It's a very effective CG creation. Normally, like if you look at like Deep Blue Sea and Sharknado and all that kind of stuff, usually CGI sharks look very bad. They look just like CGI sharks. This film is really the first, I think, to be able to do more with that and make it work and make it look very effective. The reason it works too is because, much like Jaws, you don't see the shark a whole lot. You see its fin, and you'll see some overhead shots of just the size of the shark, almost like a shadow going around. But you really only see a few key close-up scenes of its mouth and its head. And because they didn't have to spend a whole bunch of special effects budget on all of these different shark scenes, much like Jaws on this level, less is more. Right. So that when it does show up, it's very effective when you see it, and it looks very convincing. But to me, you definitely have to say that the star of the film is by far Blake Lively, who does just a tremendous job of keeping you glued to the film, of keeping you interested in what's happening. She's a smart character. She's not some damsel in distress. She's a med student. She's also very aware of her surroundings. She's using her watch to keep timing on the shark, and she's just a really smart and very, a very independent character. It is interesting that the little seagull is kind of her little companion. And I will say the audience was very warm to the seagull. She even refers to him as Steven Seagull. And he's great. He really is. You just don't think about the seagull being that much of a character, but he's pretty daggone wonderful. And so there are those moments of levity, and you have to have that. I mean, you do. And Steven Seagal gives you just enough levity to make it work. He's a very cute, fun character. And I'm not making him to sound like he's not like an Ewok or a Jar Jar Binks or something like that. He's not. They don't put a spotlight on him or anything. He's just always kind of there in the background, and he's just really neat that he's there. That's just all I'm saying. Like her, he's injured, so the two of them have some similarities, and there's an odd bonding between human and seagull. That somehow works. It's surprisingly endearing, and it shouldn't work. It sounds like it shouldn't work, but they do a great job. And again, it's very well directed. It's very well shot. There's just some lush photography of the ocean, and it's that kind of ocean where you can see the bottom, you can see everything, and oh man, I mean, just some beautiful shots. And it's interesting you can take such beautiful cinematography and just add this level of horror to it. That again, it's scary even when it's daylight. And that's that to me is effective horror. If you want to dub this a horror film, I think it's very effective in that. Unlike we talked earlier with Green Room. Okay, whereas for me, Green Room didn't quite work on that level, but that's what it was supposed to be. This film did work for me on that level, and that seems like what it was supposed to be. I feel like the horror fans would dig it. I feel like fans of thrillers would dig it. People who are fans of Blake Lively, you'll definitely be a fan of her in this. She really does a hell of a job in this movie. Really and truly. She had to do a lot of surfboard stunts, I'm sure she took a lot of scuba training for the stuff she has to do in this movie. Because there are several scenes where she is completely submerged, like doing stuff underwater, and it's very intense. So definitely hats off to her. Looking at this from a theater standpoint, Brian, do you recommend people buy their tickets and go see this in the theater, or is this a wait for Redbox or Netflix thing?
Well, I will say this. I think some horror fans might like this. I think there are certain horror fans that there won't be enough meat on the bone for them.
Yeah, if you're looking for gore, you're not going to get that. No, I will agree with that.
I mean, there's not a great deal number of surprises. I mean, things pretty much develop the way you expect them to do, except for the end. and they do have to kind of cheese an ending a little bit.
A little bit, but it still worked. I mean, the audience really enjoyed it. So I mean,
it was kind of to me it was kind of goofy.
I didn't say that.
Yeah,
it's a little goofy.
I mean, it's should I even make this joke? It's almost as bad as the ending of Jaws. Greg, I'm sorry, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But
you're gonna face our wrath of Greg Nicotero.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
No.
But no, I mean, yeah, the ending's a little cheesy. I enjoyed watching the film.
I recommend it at least as a matinee.
I would certainly recommend it for a matinee, except for this with this one caveat. If you haven't seen Conjuring 2 and you got to choose between the two, yeah, Conjuring 2 is going to win that one.
Sure.
Win that battle.
Sure. If you're looking for true horror.
Yes, that's definitely a horror. It's more of a thriller than I would say necessarily a horror film. And there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And I mean, you give Blake Lively her props. She acted the heck out of this.
Oh, man,
she put herself on the line for this. Absolutely.
It's the kind of role that wouldn't surprise me if it got like a Golden Globe nomination or possibly down the road an Academy Award nomination, because the film does it lives and breathes by her.
Oh, absolutely.
And it works because she's so good.
And any actor will tell you, when you've got nothing to act against, I mean, you're really having to reach in deep. So, I mean, certainly I got to give it credit for that. The story, like I said, no real surprises.
No, not at all.
I mean, you kind of know how this is going to go.
If you've read The Raft, you got a pretty good idea of how it's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of know. You know how this is. One thing I do have to give credit to the story. There were a couple of moments where they really could have okey-doke this thing and dropped the ball in a real way that they didn't do.
Yes.
That they took the high ground on and actually told a better story. So I certainly have to give the story credit for that, because there were a couple of times specifically, and I don't want to really go into specifics of
I don't
want to spoil anything, but there were a couple of moments you're like, yeah, a lesser movie would have gone down that road.
Yes.
And it didn't need to do that.
No.
and it did. So I mean, certainly, like I say, if you've already seen Conjuring 2, and it's for a matinee, absolutely, I would certainly.
I'll say this: it may be something like you've seen before, but it's done really well.
Yes.
So on that level, it gets a recommendation from me. I would definitely recommend it for a matinee. I'm not sure if I'd pay the full price on it, just because it is such a short film. It's not like one of those like big bombastic summer action pictures.
Yeah.
But I think if you're with some friends and want to see something that will make you kind of grip the seat rails a couple of times and get you kind of tense, maybe even lifting your feet up out of the floor a little bit. I did see that happen in the theater around me.
Yes.
I can recommend it on that level very much so.
Mm-hmm.
It is, again, in a summer full of big bloated Hollywood films, which we're going to talk about another one of those next. It's actually pretty refreshing, honestly, to see a more small scale. I mean, again, much like 10 Cloverfield Lane, this is a movie that it almost could be a stage play.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one person and the shark, really. I mean, that's about it. I mean, if you could find a way to duplicate that on stage, it would be a really neat stage play. Not that it would ever be possible. I'm just saying it gives you an idea of how. Yes, you're on the ocean, but it's a very intimate, claustrophobic tale. And that, for me, is where it gets major props. Especially as a film to watch during the summer. It may actually make you think a little bit when you go back out to the beach, much like Jaws did. So it could be a horror film for certain people. If you do have a fear of sharks or a fear of the ocean, boy, this film will terrify you.
Oh, yeah.
I truly believe that. But I will say, too, next weekend, if you have a marquee cinemas near you, they will be showing Jaws on the big screen next Sunday at 2 and 7, and then the following Wednesday at 2 and 7. I will say, if you have to save up for any of them, that's the one I'm going to tell you to pick, because that's the greatest movie ever made. And Greg Nicotero, I know you agree with me on that. So I'm like this a-hole. I'm with you on that one. So in the end, we both definitely recommend it, both for a matinee. Brian also says that if you've not seen The Conjuring 2, see it first. If you're looking for good horror, but if you're looking for a fun thriller that will definitely make you jump a few times, I would highly recommend it. We both would highly recommend The Shallows, definitely for a matinee. So let us know below what you thought of The Shallows. Did it work for you? Did it not? Do you think the Jaws comparisons are valid? Do you feel that it's a better film? If you do, you're wrong, but that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion, even if it's wrong. But let us know in the comments below what you thought of The Shallows. Now remember, please, if you do post anything that is spoiler territory, please make sure you note that before posting it, so not to spoil it for others. That is something that we cannot stand and others can't either, so please don't be that person. Moving on to the big budget blockbuster of the weekend, which still couldn't beat Finding Dory, and that is the sequel to 1996's blockbuster hit Independence Day. That the movie this now is Independence Day Resurgence. It takes place 20 years. Hard to believe it's been that long. 20 years from the original Independence Day. Now, Brian, I know you didn't get a chance to see this yet, but did you get to see the original Independence Day in the theater?
Yes, I did.
And what was it like for you seeing it? Because I mean, boy, everybody I knew like it blew their mind.
Oh,
it's so, I mean, yes, it's cheesy, but man, it's really effectively fun cheesy.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I'm trying to remember, what year? Remind me again. What year did it come out?
96.
Yeah, 96. I mean, keep in mind, I thought it was like 96, 97. I couldn't remember, but I mean, think about this. This was pre 9/11.
Yes. Yes, it
You
was.
know, the thought of being attacked in America and the image of the White House being decimated, it was such a stunning image because it was something that was not part of our consciousness.
Oh, that White House shot was used in the Super Bowl trailer, the original trailer. It's one of the most iconic visuals.
That's when you knew things
in
were
the past
going on.
30
I mean,
years.
yeah, I mean, it was one of those moments like I mean, we were still living in a world where an attack on American soil was not even, I mean, it was something you just did not even consider. I mean, it's kind of strange to think that there are, you know, we have young people now that they've lived in a world where
There's no trade center. Yeah.
there's no trade center. The idea of a terrorist attack on American soil is just a given. You've accepted that, you know, and for us, I mean, those images were so powerful just because of that. And that was something that was just inconceivable to us at the time.
It really was. And the thing is, the film went on to become the highest grossing film of 1996, beating out such heavyweights as Twister and Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise.
Right.
It was just a huge blockbuster, and it was the film that really shot Will Smith into that stratosphere of Hollywood stardom. I mean, he had Bad Boys before that, which was a hit. But Independence Day really made him like the bankable star for the late 90s.
Yeah.
And really, you know, you look at the fact, it you know, again, it did very well for Jeff Goldblum, who just 3 years prior had Jurassic Park. You know, and so, you know, he had that, you know, Bill Pullman, it did good for him. So, I mean, it's a big movie. It's a big, goofy love letter to America in a lot of ways. It's a wonderful throwback to those films like War of the Worlds. It had a great mixture of practical effects and CG effects. Great pacing, you know, it's over the top, but it totally embraces the fact that it is. And it's just a fun, patriotic, you know, just a whiz-bang, awesome Star Wars for the mid-90s, you know, kind of flick. It's a big, goofy, fun movie. Great soundtrack by David Arnold, one of the few soundtracks I actually purchased that year, and I still think it's one of the best soundtracks of the 1990s. Just so many good things about it. And then we come to Independence Day Resurgence. Now, a lot of people have been waiting, you know, 20 years to see this. Now, I just showed my son Independence Day last week because he really had an interest in it, and I showed it to him. He loved it. I mean, his 10-year-old mind was just loved it, absolutely loved it. And so he was really excited about seeing Independence Day Resurgence. So Friday night, we went to the late show because he was amped and ready to go. I was tired, but I was like, okay, let's go. And so we went. And you have several characters coming back. Jeff Goldblum comes back, Bill Pullman comes back, Judd Hirsch comes back, Brent Spiner comes back, Vivica A. Fox even comes back. So, with all these characters coming back, you'd think there'd be a lot of goodwill that you keep for them. What you notice is, of course, you really do miss Will Smith in that script. You miss him immediately. You really do. They have, as far as the character goes, the little boy in the original Independence Day, who was like his stepson, has now grown up to be a fighter pilot like him, and he is the Will Smith character of this movie, only he just does not have the charisma. And I don't think it's the actor's fault as much as it's just the script does not let him be that. He's much more serious and stoic. He's not Will Smith's character at all. So you have a major loss there without him being in it. Bill Pullman's back, of course, as former President Whitmore. Jeff Goldblum, of course, once again, David Levinson. And in this new world of 2016, Earth is united. It's very much like Gene Roddenberry's concept for Star Trek. There's no differences now amongst religions or colors or, you know, races or creeds or anything. Everybody is just all together in this. And you would have to think, if an event like that happened, a massive alien force attacks the whole planet, it would, I think, cause us to come together. You kind of have to, because then you have that thought of, oh my, now we know there's bigger things out there. This is what Watchmen did, even in the mid-'80s, the idea of the giant squid. And why does he do it? Because it brings everyone together. It brings an end to the Cold War and makes unity happen. Sort of the same thing here. So we've had 20 years now to prepare. Now they've got all these hybrid vehicles with alien technology. Really cool looking stuff, I won't lie. There's some really neat looking effects. Liam Hemsworth is sort of they're trying to make him sort of the Will Smith of this film. He's sort of the more smart alecky, kind of fly by the seat of his pants kind of pilot. He's on the moon because of some disobedience he had with him and Will Smith's son, whose name in the film is Dylan. I forgot Dylan. Yeah, Dylan Hiller. They have a beef between them because of a flying incident. President Whitmore's daughter, who oddly enough is not played by the actress who played her in the original film, Mae Whitman, who's had a really good career since that movie. Like, I'm kind of shocked she's not in this. And there's some rumors that she was not pretty enough for it, which is a real shame, because they really missed the ball. Also, the kid that plays Dylan is not the same kid from the first movie either. I don't know what happened there, but there we go. So anyway, President Whitmore has these visions in his head, visions of the alien forces and them coming back. And so too does Brent Spiner's character, Dr. Oaken, who in the original film was choked by one of the aliens and it spoke telepathically through his mind. So he's been touched by them. And then there's one other character they added to this movie that I thought was actually very interesting. And his name is Dikembe Mbutu, played by, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Diobia Okore. He was in Dread 3D. He's been in Game of Thrones. Really, really good actor. His character was like an African warlord who, his village was near where one of the only alien ships that landed during the 1996 attack was there in Africa. So they had been fighting these things on the ground. And we're still fighting them after the mothership was destroyed because, well, the alien presence was still there. So this guy's like a total badass. He's got machetes. He's killing them. He knows how to kill them from behind with their biosuits and stuff. Totally cool character. I really dug him a lot. He's not in a whole lot, but when he's in it, he's awesome. And then the screenwriter of the film, Nicholas Wright, gets to write himself in as a character named Floyd Rosenberg. And Floyd is just annoying. He's there to be annoying and just annoy people. That's pretty much it. And I'm like, wow, you wrote a part for yourself, and you wrote yourself as the most annoying character pretty much ever. So how does this film work? Well, they don't take very long to get to the alien action because they know that's what you came to see. So there's this big Independence Day celebration. The new president, played by CeeLo Ward, is there, and the president of the Earth Defense Force, as they're called. President Whitmore shows up. Robert Loggia has one little quick cameo because he, of course, unfortunately passed away this past year. Has a quick cameo as his general character. He doesn't even say a word, but he's there. And that was kind of sad to not see him get involved. And it's, of course, sad he's not here with us anymore. So anyway, as they're at this big 20th anniversary celebration, the alien harvester ship shows up, and this thing has its own gravity. It's 3,000 feet wide, or 3,000 miles wide. It's like it takes up like a quarter of the planet when it lands, kind of thing. I mean, it's so impossibly big. You're just like, okay, there's that. So have at it, man. Just let's go. So of course we have to come together and fight this new menace. It's destroyed a whole big chunk of the UK. Oddly enough, this is the same weekend of the whole Brexit thing, which I think is kind of funny, because the UK's been destroyed, literally and figuratively. So there you go. So anyway, this ship lands, and more catastrophe happens, and it's crazy. And so they've got to rally back and attack the thing, and they find out there's a queen, because of course there always has to be an alien queen. James Cameron made that happen in '86. It's been happening ever since. Even Star Trek: First Contact fell victim to the have to have an alien queen. So there's this big alien queen, and she's speaking to the people who have touched other aliens telepathy, and they're going nuts and it hurts and stuff, and they're figuring out how to fight back. And so once again, it's up to Jeff Goldblum and other people to come together and create some way to fight back. This time it's not a virus. It's not Windows 10, which we thought might be. No, not Windows 10 or even Vista. It's they have to find a way to trap them with like shielding, and it's crazy. I'm not gonna get into all of it. It's just crazy. It's a big crazy movie. The difference is with this film, there is some good dialogue. Jeff Goldblum definitely has some great dialogue. Brent Spiner is always fun in the role of Dr. Oaken. He's great. Vivica A. Fox, I will say this, it's funny, Vivica A. Fox's character in the first movie, she's a stripper. And now 20 years later, somehow she's become like a friggin' doctor, and she's helping deliver babies, and it's just like, good for you, man. Way to overcome. You know, you went from being a stripper to an OBGYN or whatever. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. So I was like, why not? That's awesome. There you go. It's just, there's all kinds of like these moments where you're just like, okay, why is this character here? They're not going to really do anything. It's not like in the original film where you had to focus on Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman and Randy Quaid. You had to focus on those 4 characters. And they all ended up converging together for the final attack, which made sense. And in this, it just feels so like separate. Everything's kind of going on all over a different place. Judd Hirsch is back as Julius, David's dad, and you know he's charming because he's Judd Hirsch, but he's there with a bunch of kids, and it's like this subplot doesn't even need to happen.
It's well, they were in the first movie, and
basically, yeah,
you kind of have to.
We could get them back cheap, and then if they add to the budget, because that's why they didn't bring Will Smith back, is the budget.
Right.
It was going to cost them $50 million for 2 movies, so no, they couldn't afford it.
Right.
So yeah, they brought back everybody they could afford, basically, and it's just there because remember when they were in the first movie? Well, they're back now. Same with Vivica A. Fox. She's in the film for like not even 5 minutes. Judd Hirsch is in it for about 10 or 15, but it's sporadic and just kind of just there. The thing is, the first movie is, yes, it's very big and cheesy and loud and bombastic, but it's fun. And we do care about the characters, and we do want them to overcome and win. You know, President Whitmore's speech is a great speech. It's a good moment in the film. You know, the whole idea of the alien virus and stuff, as goofy as it seems, it works in the context of that film. It does. It works really well, for me at least. And again, showing it to my kid, who's only 10 years old, it played beautifully to him. I mean, he was genuinely upset when the aliens attacked, and genuinely like pumping his fist during the president's speech and saluting the TV and everything. I mean, he was into it. And so we went to see this with big expectations because, of course, we really enjoyed the first one. And if you're looking for just the big, crazy set pieces, you do get some of those, as you would expect. That's what you are selling this film on. If you've seen the trailers, you've seen a lot of the big attacks. But what the film lacks is the sense of urgency and pacing that the original film had. I mean, it clips. It's a long movie. Oddly enough, the first film's about a half an hour longer than the new one. But it feels like it goes by faster because it's got a sense of urgency. Things are constantly happening, building to the next thing, building to the next thing, building to the next thing. And it's constantly going. And this film doesn't really have that because you've already seen it all before. You've seen the attack on the planet. And so this, even though it's bigger and it's 3,000 miles wide, and it's no different. It's still shadows coming over things, landmarks getting destroyed. It's no different. Really, it's really not. You can say the special effects might be a little bit better in certain things, but in other things, I think the lack of practical effects, you can feel it at points. You really can. So this movie doesn't have the urgency. It doesn't have that fantastic David Arnold score. David Arnold was on Twitter even saying he has no idea why he was not asked to come back. And it's a crime because his score really carries a lot of the moments in that original film. It really pushes it up. It's a John Williams kind of score. And this film doesn't have any of that. The 2 people who are working on the score don't bring any of that. You hear a couple of the themes from the first movie pop up mostly during the end credits. It's really lacking in that department as well. So it's really lacking in fun characters other than Jeff Goldblum and Dr. Oak and Brent Spiner and Dikembe Mboto's character, the African Lord. He's great. They're fun. They're very fun. So it's really missing a lot. And even though the aliens are all coming back and there's all kinds of ships and stuff, the Menace just doesn't seem like it did.
Well, and since I haven't seen the film, I mean, my guess on this, and you can tell me, you know, if maybe I'm off track on this, but it just seems to me that, again, number one, we've seen real menace on TV. I mean, we've seen some really bad stuff, and we're dealing with these alien invaders for the second time. In the first movie, they were so technologically advanced, there was no way we could. You could even. How do you fight that? You can't.
Right.
So there's that drama because it's like how
do we fight back? Yeah.
How can we possibly fight back? They're so technologically.
Even our
advanced.
nuclear weapons are no
exactly. We were completely. But and in this situation, not only do we have alien tech to fight back, but we're fighting a menace we've actually beaten before.
Right.
So we know they can lose. We just have to figure out how to make it happen again.
Right. Exactly.
You know. So you don't have that moment where you're as worried about it. Just like we just have to figure out how to beat them this time.
Now there is this MacGuffin that actually sets up a third film. There is this ship that comes out of a wormhole, and it looks like a big sphere. And they showed like footage from like other parts of the country and stuff where people who had been touched by the aliens were drawing this circle with like a dash through it. And everybody thought it was the ships, the alien ships from the first movie, because they had that big circular shape and then that front ridge part, which was like the front of the ship. And it's not that. It's this spherical thing that comes through. And so we played the whole game of shoot first, ask questions later on this thing, and it turns out that this one thing is like the one thing that can save us from the overall alien army. And so they have to find a way to like reopen it and make it work, and they do. And it's basically like the ultimate MacGuffin device. It's like, because you're good people and you'll help us fight these aliens, we can give you all of this technology that they're trying to get. So if the alien queen gets me, then everybody's screwed because I've got the most awesome technology in the universe. Don't let her get me. Okay, they're like, the thing's like, shut me down, just kill me off so she can't get me. And they're like, no, we're going to do this. And so they make a plan to keep this thing alive. So at the end, the thing's like showing them like how it's going to be able to, how they'll be able to use wormholes, interstellar travel, new weapons, new technology, new medicine, and they're like, this is it. This is how we're going to destroy the rest of the Harvester ships. We're going to take the battle to them. And the final line is, we're going to kick some serious alien ass. Roll credits. So they are really banking on the fact that this film is going to make money to get that third film out there.
Yeah.
And they've already said it would be like put into production really quickly if the film's a hit. Now, it did worldwide this weekend, had a great box office. It brought in $143 million worldwide. That's pretty huge for a film that's a sequel to a 20-year-old film that's missing its key star, that for just, it was not screened in advance for critics. That's usually a very bad sign. And you know, a film that is really, it's almost like a greatest hits compilation of the first movie.
Yeah.
Very watered down. I'm not saying you won't have fun with it. If you really love the first movie, you're obviously really going to want to see this. See it in a matinee. We saw it in 2D, and I think you'd be fine to see it in 2D. There's a lot of action in it. Now, I will say, a lot of action takes place in daylight, which may look okay in 3D. But again, it's so fast-paced that it probably would lose a lot in transition. Now, home theater setting might be a little different, but I don't think you need to see it in 3D to be able to really appreciate all the visual effects that are going on. And there are some impressive moments. I'm not going to say there weren't a couple moments where I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Or yeah, that's pretty neat. There are, as you would expect. Visual effects are still great today. Even with the use of CG, it's still great looking stuff. But really what the film misses is the emotional core from the original film, that how do we overcome this? We have to work together to do that. And in this film, everybody's already working together. They've got the advanced technology, and it's just a matter of figuring out what they're after and how do you stop.
And they're getting, as you say, they're getting even more advanced technology.
And this third film that will happen, yes, they're going to have the most advanced technology in the friggin' universe. So there really should be no way to stop them. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But in the end, it is a film that I will only recommend if you are a die-hard fan of the original, and you just, as a completionist, have to see it. If you do, see it at a matinee. I would not pay full price on it. It is not a film that I would recommend highly. And honestly, on a 5-star scale, where I put the first Independence Day, probably a 4 out of 5 stars, maybe even a 4.5. I really do enjoy that film. I know it has problems, but I think it overcomes them just with its goodwill, its intensity, its pacing, its visual effects, its iconographic imagery. It's a big, crazy, cool, attacking into the world kind of film. This film would probably be like about a 2, maybe a 2.5, because I really do like certain characters in it, and there are some pretty neat set pieces in it. But it's even though it's a shorter film, it feels longer, and it feels like sort of a hollow retread of the first one. And I think that's where it definitely loses something. I mean, I don't think you're really missing anything by not seeing it. My son put it best. He's like, I thought it was okay. It's not as good as the first one, but it's okay. But there you go. That's from the mouth of babes. That's where I put it. So,
as honest as it gets.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments below what you thought of Independence Day Resurgence. If you enjoyed it, Let us know. If you didn't, let us know. Again, if you're going to mention any major plot points, please, spoiler alert at the top of your post. But let us know what you thought. Was it what you were waiting for after 20 years? Do you think they should have just let it be after 20 years? Let us know in your thoughts below. So now we'll turn to the news. Brian?
Alrighty. Well, hopefully this first item's not going to turn into 30 minutes of discussion, but we'll see how that happens. This week, Warner Brothers allowed press on the London set of Justice League in an unprecedented, embargo-free look at the film. An entire 16 months before the film's even going to be released. The press junket gave those in attendance a look at the production, seeming to indicate a lighter tone for the film as compared to Batman v Superman. And here's the official synopsis of the film that was released this week. Fueled by his restored faith in humanity and inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne enlists the help of his newfound ally, Diana Prince, to face an even greater enemy. Together, Batman and Wonder Woman work quickly to find and recruit a team of metahumans to stand against this newly awakened threat. But despite the formation of this unprecedented League of Heroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash, it may already be too late to save the planet from an assault of catastrophic proportions.
There you go.
So,
I laughed with, inspired so much by Superman, who he was trying to kill until he said the word Martha, who was so uninspiring in all of his ways of saving people with a scour the entire film. Wow. Yeah, okay. What else? I'm to the point now, this all reeks of desperation to me. They're desperately trying to change the tone. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You can definitely tell that they have heard the cry from the complaints of Batman v Superman and are trying to kind of redact it.
yeah. And what surprises me is that a lot of the people brought in for this press junket were bloggers and people that were very critical of Batman v Superman, which, maybe you bring in some of the traditional press, but to bring in bloggers and all that. And again, there are a lot of critics out, a lot of internet critics, many that I respect,
sure,
who are, in a sense, apologists for Batman v Superman. They're like, hey, you made 181, million, and it's opening night. I mean, it's hardly a flop, etc., etc. But, you're beyond the point where you can say, well, Warner Brothers was happy with this movie. They're so obviously not happy with Batman v Superman.
Well, I got a kick out of the whole quote from Zack Snyder's wife, Deborah. When they were like, well, we listened, and what we learned is that nobody wants to see their superheroes deconstructed. I'm like, do you think? Well, because, in Watchmen, sure, that was the whole concept of the original story that Alan Moore wrote, was a deconstruction of 1980s era superheroes. That's what it was. The problem was you can't take Superman and put him in, if you're trying to create your Superman, you don't just throw him into The Dark Knight Returns, because Superman in The Dark Knight Returns is a capitalist sellout, and he's already at odds with Batman in that comic. We don't need that coming into this if you're trying to just establish your universe first and foremost, which they are. And it was such a mixture of tones that did not work, that this whole thing, it's what I thought was hilarious too, is them talking about how Batman and Bruce Wayne even have little humorous quips. And I'm like, well, there you go. They're finally at least kind of figuring out the Marvel formula works. It does. You don't have to copy it completely, but it is kind of a good idea to look at your competition, see what's working, and see how you can apply that to your work. So to that end, I'll say kudos to Warner Brothers in DC for at least listening to the complaints and trying to take action. My wondering is, though, is it going to be too little too late? Because at this point, I'm just so kind of over it all. Yeah. Like, I'm looking forward to the solo Batman film big time. Genuinely looking forward to that. The scene that they described between Batman and the Flash sounds like a fun scene. It sounds a lot like something we saw in Civil War, but it sounds like a fun scene. I just, it's going to take a lot for me to just really get amped up for this movie. It's for their whole franchise at this point. It's going to take a lot. to get me.
Well, I mean, I certainly get the feeling that Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder haven't been on the same page for a while.
I would agree with
And
that.
going back to what Deborah Snyder said the big lesson we learned, from Batman v Superman is that people don't want their heroes deconstructed. Okay, if that's the lesson you learned, you haven't learned anything, because one of the most successful superhero movies of the year, Deadpool, is nothing but deconstructing the superhero genre and turning it on its head. It will work. You can do that if your movie calls for it, the story you're trying to tell calls for it, which Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, not the story you're really trying to tell.
No, not at all.
You can't deconstruct and make your audience question whether you should like Superman or not when you're going to kill him at the end of the movie and you need your audience to sympathize with him when he dies. It just doesn't work.
No.
And the other thing that bothers me is that even though Zack Snyder is so obviously being leashed right now, you've got Jeff Johns writing, and you've got an executive producer in Ben Affleck who's right. I mean, I kind of get this feeling that they're just basically keeping him locked down and trying to minimize the damage until his contract's over, and they're gonna boot him. But Zack Snyder, even at this point, he's still in the press saying, well, the type of stuff I was trying to do, maybe the audience wasn't really smart enough.
It's almost like a backhanded comment.
Yeah.
Like, you just didn't get it, so now
Exactly.
I'm going to have to dumb it down for you people and add humor and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever, Zach. I mean, I'm done defending the guy on this stuff. I really am.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and this is a question, I would give to Zack Snyder. If you're making movies that are too smart for your audience, then who are you making movies for? Because you're making movies for your audience. You have to make movies for audiences. They're the ones who come to buy them. So if you're not making movies for movie audiences, who are you making them for?
You can't just make them for yourself.
I tell you, I think he does. I think he honestly does. And I have this dread, once again, still waiting for that 4-hour cut to come out so I can watch it. I have a feeling it's going to confirm this was a movie that he made for himself. And if that's what I wind up seeing, and I have a feeling I'm going to see it, I'm really trying not to rant, and it's like I'm not, again, this is not turning into another let's kick Zack Snyder around, but, I'm hoping that the day doesn't come where I'm not going to be able to help myself and I'm just going to explode. And it may be if 4 hours of this movie is what finally sets me off.
Like
but
I said, I have no desire to revisit it. I've beaten that dead horse as much as I can.
Yeah, well, like I said, probably in a couple, I think it's going to be in about a week or so, maybe. It'll be out on iTunes. I'll watch it. We'll come out here, and you can back off about 3 feet, and I'll make a crater here in the man attic. I have a feeling.
He'll go Super Saiyan.
There you go. So, speaking of synopses, James Gunn released the following synopses for Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
There we go.
So here's a comparison. We'll see how this one goes. Set to the backdrop of Awesome Mixtape number 2. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 continues the team's adventures as they traverse the outer reaches of the cosmos. The Guardians must fight to keep their newfound family together as they unravel the mysteries of Peter Quill's true parentage. Old foes become new allies, and fan-favorite characters from the classic comics will come to our heroes' aid as the Marvel Cinematic Universe continues to expand.
That's awesome.
I will add 3 words to that description. Take my money.
Oh, absolutely. Just seeing more of that universe expanding is never a bad thing. I love the whole idea of Kurt Russell being in that film, and many people speculated that he's going to be Star-Lord's dad. I have said it would be the greatest thing ever if they just made him Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China, and that Jack Burton was the father of Star-Lord. That would be, to me, the freaking greatest thing you could do ever.
And it makes so much sense.
It would make so much sense, man, because, he's been touched by Egg Shin's magic. He could make an alien kid. Come on, man, let's let that go. But yeah, the fact that you got Kurt Russell in it, the fact that you've got that whole crew, returning, that film was the one. You and I were talking about this last night. It's going to be the movie that breaks Marvel. It's going to be the film that kills them. It's going to be their first major flop. And it goes on to be like the highest grossing film that year, and you know, kids love it, adults love it. It's a movie where a talking raccoon and a talking tree will bring tears to your eyes, and you care about them just as much as you care about any character you've ever watched. James Gunn, I love the fact that Marvel told him when he turned in his first draft of the original script, and they said it's not James Gunn enough. Make a James Gunn movie. That's what we want you to make. That's what we hired you to make. So I really love the fact that James Gunn, who is a great screenwriter and a fun director, if you've not seen Slither, oh my god, see Slither, it's a great movie. But the fact that he's actually getting to make, you know, a James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy universe is exciting as hell. I mean, he put Lloyd Kaufman in the prison in the first movie. Come on, and Nathan Fillion is an alien character. I mean, like he's got a great sense of humor. He's got that right mixture of knowing when to keep, you know, the emotions in the scene, you know, up, knowing when to have those moments of levity, knowing how to make action not just intense but also fun. He's got a really good mindset for those films. So yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw the first movie, I'm like, I'm already ready for the second one. Just here's my cash, go ahead and book me in advance. So yeah, it just seems like once again.
Well, you know, last week it wrapped up shooting, so
hopefully we'll get a trailer soon, man. I bet you in front of Doctor Strange.
That would be awesome.
I need to see that trailer in front of Doctor Strange.
Well, this is. I know we're continuing with the superhero news, but you know, these are movies and superheroes. I mean, just accept it. So. On the Marvel shooting schedule, Thor Ragnarok begins shooting on July 4th.
Which also has Jeff Goldblum, Independence Day.
Oh,
what?
There you go.
There you go.
And producer Simon Kinberg confirmed at this week's Saturn Awards that Deadpool 2 will begin filming in early 2017, reuniting stars Ryan Reynolds, the screenwriters Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, and director Tim Miller.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
On both of them. I'm really excited about Thor Ragnarok. I like the fact of bringing in Kate Blanchett, bringing in Jeff Goldblum, you know, knowing that the Hulk is going to be in that film. That movie sounds like it's going to be like bonkers, like in all the right ways. So very excited about Thor Ragnarok. Because you know, I liked The Dark World. I didn't love it, but I thought it was fun. This movie seems like we're going to get out of having Thor on Earth because we don't need that all the time.
Right.
Let's keep it in other realms of the 9 realms. You know, let's get out there and get crazy with it. And it sounds like this one will do that. And then, of course, I mean, Deadpool 2, you know, gosh, it's amazing how much money that first film made. And my hope is it will be called Deadpool 2 Electric Boogaloo. I wouldn't be shocked if this one pulled that off. So go to start the campaign now. Hashtag Deadpool 2 Electric Boogaloo. You know, that film, bringing back all those people, knowing that they're talking about Cable, which I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I'm also going to be interested to see, and I think this will be hilarious, because he makes light of the fact in his own movie that they must not have had the budget to have many X-Men involved because the mansion's really empty. And now that Deadpool's made so much money, I gotta wonder, like, if all kinds of X-Men will be popping up in this new movie, which will be hilarious. And of course, he's gonna have to make reference to the fact that they got a bigger budget.
Right.
I hope and pray that will happen because it will be just that much more awesome.
I hope that they have this they're able to make this really large and really beautiful fourth wall to break through.
Oh, buddy, yeah. I feel like it's definitely going to happen. Definitely a film I'll be anticipating. And I do wonder if they'll try to keep it in that February time slot, you know, for the sequel, because, man, that was just genius marketing for the original. Or will they, now that they know that it's a big hit, will they move it into the summer season, you know, where I think it would also do well? I'm very interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing about it is, I mean, you're going to have to deal with the sophomore jinx, but I mean, you're bringing everybody in, and I mean, again, I mean, not that I will keep saying this over and over again. Ryan Reynolds, he was born to play Deadpool. You know, at least this version of Deadpool.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's such a fun film, and I'm ready for more of the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to. If it's really if it's not broken, don't fix it. You know.
Yeah.
Let it be just the goofy film that it is. You know. Hopefully now they'll have a little bit more budget, so they can do a few more things they want to do to it. Add more of the X-Men universe in it.
Yeah.
I know he really wanted. Well, and Hugh Jackman even wanted to be in the first one. My hope is that maybe he'll run into Wolverine, because that would be pretty awesome in that universe. And letting Hugh Jackman be an R-rated Wolverine in an R-rated Deadpool movie would be a bit of all right for me. So,
oh, absolutely.
We'll see how that plays.
All right, let's talk some weekend box office. Number 1, again this week with everything that was coming out, Finding Dory with 73,238,746.
Yep.
Coming in at number 2, we have Independence Day Resurgence at 41,600,000. Central Intelligence drops 1 place to number 3 with 18,370,000. The Shallows debuts at number 4 with 16,700,000. Free State of Jones comes in at number 5 at 7,772,000. Conjuring 2 drops 3 places to number 6 with 7,705,000. Now You See Me 2 drops 3 places to number 7 at 5,650,000. At number 8 we have X-Men Apocalypse dropping 2 places from 6 to 8 with 2,475,000. At number 9, again dropping 2 places, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Back from the Shadows at 2,400,000. And at number 10, dropping 2 places, Alice Through the Looking Glass, 2,147,144. Now there are some really kind of depressing drops. Warcraft dropped from 5 to 11. At 2,130,000.
Yeah, but apparently that film has done very well in the Chinese box office. Really broke records.
Which is certainly enough to keep it going.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Pacific Rim did the same thing. They announced this week that that's moving forward with John Boyega from Force Awakens playing Idris Elba's character's son. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and so I figured, it was a very simplistic story. I mean, I can see it
don't have any big box office names attached to it. In a film like that, you kind of got to have that. Mm-hmm. And like you said, in a summer glut, I mean, there was just a few weeks there where nothing was really striking until Finding Dory brought it back with that huge weekend last weekend.
Yeah. And one movie I was interested to see, and because I've heard so many good things about it, but it's still just very limited, we didn't get a chance to see, was The Neon Demon.
Yes, I really do want to see that too.
Yeah. It debuts at number 15. It only made like $606,000.
But it's a small release, so it's probably pretty decent for its release.
Yeah. Again, it's like they did that. They're going the same route as Green Room, which I don't know.
Well, they did that too with Griffin's film Drive. It took forever for Drive to get really any kind of push. Like I've been hearing about it and hearing about it and hearing about it, and then finally, boom! It just opened up all over the place. So it seems like his films tend to do that. Now, I don't believe that Only God Forgives ever got released really massively. And that's a weird film. It's definitely, Nicholas Winding Refn, I would say this, he makes gorgeous movies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tonally, they're very interesting films. Drive it's like candy-coated neon Los Angeles, and at the same time, it's like Taxi Driver, gritty.
Yeah.
It's an odd mixture of tone. Only God Forgives is a very weird film. Man, it's beautiful to look at. I'm not even going to front. It's a gorgeous looking movie. But I'm really interested in The Neon Demon. It looks great. Again, he's just got that very wonderful visual flair. And many people are saying it's kind of a neo-horror.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. He's a director I think could do a good job with that.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to see it. And as at number 20, I have to mention number 20 making only $285,000. But at number 20, Zootopia.
And I got to let Brian watch that.
Yes.
And Brian, have I been talking it up with bad reason?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I think you understated how good this movie was.
Aha! See Zootopia. Go get it. I've got it right there on Blu-ray.
It's amazing. It's such a good film, and yes, it's a great film for kids to watch, but it's so sophisticated. I'm not going to keep repeating what he's been saying for weeks, but yeah, he's not lying. He ain't lying, y'all. Does he tell the truth, or does he tell the truth? He tells the truth.
It is obviously from my perspective, but I'm not alone. Zootopia is only one of only 2 films to crack the $1 billion mark this year. That other one being a little film you might have heard of called Captain America: Civil War. So it goes to show that Zootopia was not based off of a comic, was not based off of a fairy tale, did not have any kind of built-in audience.
Yeah, there's no IP except for the fact that hey, it's a Disney movie
with talking animals.
With talking animals, it's like, well, they tend to do those pretty well, but wow, did they they took that to like a completely different level.
You can watch our podcast on that. It was just the only film we talked about that week. But I'm telling you, if as an adult, if you have kids, we get dragged to a lot of films where you're just like,
here we go.
Angry Birds was like that for me. Ratchet and Clank was like that for me. Zootopia. I have watched it more since we bought it than my son. And it's been that wonderful chance of showing it to people like Brian, who didn't get a chance to see it in the theater. And I'm telling you, the movie holds up brilliantly. I love it more every time I watch it. And from the adult perspective, if you like The Godfather, you like Breaking Bad, you like Chinatown, you like buddy cop films like Lethal Weapon, here you go. It's wrapped up in a beautiful, furry love letter to all those things. It almost feels like, with the lack of Christmas and bad language, it kind of has a Shane Black vibe to it. Yeah. It really kind of does, and I love it so much for that. So I'm glad you finally got to see that, and now you are a testament witness to the awesomeness that is Zootopia. So that's going to be it for this edition of The Real Deal. Now next week we do have some big films coming out.
We have 3 films.
I want to hit that real quick before we head out.
Well, we have The Legend of Tarzan with Alexander Skarsgård, Samuel L. Jackson, Christoph Waltz, and Margot Robbie.
Which, that film looks kind of cool.
It does.
I love a good Tarzan story, and so to see one where they've got the visual effects budget to really do all the crazy stuff with the animals, the apes, and everything. I mean, I've got to be honest. I'm actually hoping that it feels like one of those old school, 1970s, 1980s, action blockbuster kind of flicks. Man, I would really love for it to have.
Oh yeah, that sort of that serial film, like Raiders of the Lost Ark,
or even like a film that like Romancing the Stone. Those films that just do a really good job of capturing that serial feel, but making it for modern audiences. I would love for it to have that kind of vibe and really kick butt.
And then we have, of course, the Steven Spielberg directed the BFG,
which you got the fact. I love the fact that that's the last screenplay that Melissa Matheson wrote before she died, and so she also, of course, wrote the brilliant screenplay for E.T.
Yeah.
And so to see Spielberg do a film with her again. Even though she's no longer with us, that alone is enough to get my butt in the seat to see that film, just because you're reuniting the 2 key people of E.T., the director and the screenwriter. I can't say my son, of course, if you have the Disney Channel, they've been promoting it heavily. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited that my son wants to go see it. I got to take him to see E.T. when it was out for its 30th anniversary. He was the exact same age I was when I saw it in the theaters in 82. And it still plays beautifully. And if the BFG even captures half of that magic, it will be a wonderful film.
And then rounding off, we have The Purge, election year, the 72nd in this series.
It's
I may be exaggerating.
I never watched any past the first one because I was done with it after the first movie. I was like, this is so.
Well, you've kind of done this, and of course in this one you have a senator saying, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this is a bad thing. And so, of course, the government throws her in the middle of the purge to stop her. So we have one person saying, well, maybe we shouldn't be killing each other in the streets one day a year. And you have a corrupt government. Can you believe a corrupt government?
I know. Who'd have thought? That's such fiction.
I mean, I don't know if I can suspend my disbelief that long.
I will say this. Of all the Purge films, this one to me has the most interesting idea of what if someone tried to stop it. How would not only the government respond, but how would the people respond, who obviously really enjoy the fact that they get to do this.
Yeah.
That could work. I'm not in any hurry to see the film because I didn't really like the first one and I've never watched the second, but I know what the second film was. I don't know that this film is going to be that much different, but at least it's got a bigger idea behind it.
Well, and
that could be interesting.
Well, and the other thing too is that you kind of get this idea where these other movies have kind of just wallowed in the fact that humanity is shit for the most part. If you give them the smallest chance to be at their worst, they're going to take it. And it seems like this movie is saying, well, there's actually, even through all of this, there are people that are still good people.
Yeah.
And
I think that might be what my issue with the first film was. It was just like, it's such a ugly film.
To me, and this is the way I described it when I first saw it, is a love letter to the worst parts of the human condition.
Yeah.
Is exactly what it is.
And
very
but
much.
the thing is, it didn't do enough to go for the jugular for a film that wants to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it didn't exploit the gore factor like it totally could have. If you're really going to go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like, I enjoyed this film, but if you want to try to be like the next Serbian film, you got to bring it.
Yeah.
Because that film's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, if you're going to try to bring out the worst in humanity in your film, then you've really got to pull no punches back.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I do have to say, very much like the senator in this film, I hope we see an end to the purge. I think it's played itself out.
It played itself out by the first film, as far as I'm concerned. But whatever. There are at least other good thrillers out there. Again, we talked about two of them today. Actually, we talked about The Shallows and then a recall to The Conjuring 2. But again, get out there and enjoy it. If you are, if you have marquee cinemas near you, not only next weekend do you get to see Jaws, but this Wednesday is the second day in the final screenings for E.T. It will be at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. at all marquee cinemas. I will say this: if you're a parent who grew up in the 80s, if you have kids who are at least 6 years older, or older, do take the chance to see E.T. on the big screen with them. As a parent, it's one of the most magical moments I had with my son, because all the things that made me laugh when I was 6, he laughed at. All the things that made me cry when I was 6, he cried at. And it was really almost like watching myself watch that film again. There's a real magic there that I can't compare it to anything else I've had like that with movies and such. It's still a beautiful film. It's still funny. It's funnier than you remember it. And as an adult, it will even play funnier to you, because there are things as a kid you didn't get that you will now. It's actually a pretty daggone sophisticated screenplay. You don't realize it when you're watching it as a kid, but as an adult, you really realize there's a lot to offer all ages of viewers for that movie. I'm just going to tell you, if you get the chance Wednesday evening, please take that chance. Support the Flashback series in general, but if you've got kids, take them to see this movie. I think it's an experience that you, as a film-going adult, who was probably a film-going kid, it's something that you will really cherish, and I hope you get the chance to take advantage of it. With that being said, that will be an end to this episode of The Real Deal. As always, leave us, what you think about in the comments below. What did you think about the movies we talked about today? What do you think about the news updates? What are some of the other things you want us to talk about in the future? Again, we are looking at some other special edition episodes we're going to try to work on. One of them we're looking at is the top 5 John Carpenter list. Not quite exactly what you're going to think there, but it's going to be fun. So, let us know what you would like us to talk about as well. If there are other films coming out or older films you'd like us to take a look at, we'd be happy to do so. And again, make sure you like and subscribe, share on Facebook. We're also on YouTube and Twitter. Again, let us know what you're thinking.